How does a respected judge end up face down on hot asphalt because of a single reckless officer? Sometimes, it takes only a tiny decision, some random, forgettable moment, to flip your entire life upside down. That's exactly what happened one Thursday evening in Modesto, California. It wasn't a dramatic encounter. It wasn't a criminal mastermind caught in the ACT. It was just a man pulling into a parking lot for a cup of coffee. No crime. No warning. No reason. Judge Lawrence Carrington had just finished a grueling 12-hour day at the Stanfield County Courthouse. His mind was foggy with fatigue, his stomach growling after hours of skip meals, and he desperately craved just a few minutes of peace. So, like he always did, Lawrence pulled into the lot of a little place called Madison's Brew, a cozy cafe tucked off McKinley Avenue, the kind of establishment where the baristas remembered your order and people still held the door open for strangers. It was, in every sense, a slice of normal life, but just a few blocks away, an officer was responding to a radio call. Suspect matching description: male, dark jacket, dark pants, last seen fleeing southbound. Nothing about Lawrence matched the description, except for one undeniable fact. He was a black man, wearing a navy blazer and slacks. And for Officer Trent Mallory, that was enough. 27 years old, freshly minted from the academy, and carrying a file already thick with warnings about over-aggressive behavior. Mallory believed he was doing exactly what a hero should do, protecting the streets, acting fast, staying tough. That's how he justified it anyway. Lawrence Carrington didn't even notice the patrol cruiser as he pulled his silver Explorer into the lot. He was thinking about a latte, maybe even indulging in a blueberry muffin if he was feeling reckless. He had no idea that within minutes he would be sprawled face down on the blistering asphalt, a knee grinding into his back, his hands cuffed behind him, as half a dozen cell phones captured every second of it. But the worst part wasn't the wrongful takedown itself. It was what happened when the crowd realized exactly who Officer Mallory had tackled. The air was thick with the smell of exhaust and roasting coffee beans as Lawrence exited his car. The evening sun stretched long shadows across the parking lot, coloring the sky a dusty, burnt orange. Families bustled around him, kids darting between parked cars, teenagers laughing over frozen yogurt cups, a woman balancing a toddler on one hip while unlocking her SUV. Ordinary life. The life Lawrence had spent his entire career protecting from the chaos of injustice. He loosened his tie, rolled his stiff shoulders, and let out a long breath. Another day behind him, custody battles, eviction hearings, sentencing rulings. Each one a heavy stone stacked onto his conscience. He didn't notice the patrol car creeping in behind him. Didn't see the officer's hand hovering near his belt. Didn't hear the engine idling, humming with tension. His focus was on the cafe's chalkboard sign: pumpkin spice latte, limited time. He chuckled to himself. Pumpkin spice already? Fall must be closer than he thought. He had just reached for the door handle when a sharp voice cut through the air. "Hey, hands where I can see them." Lawrence turned, confused. Was someone being robbed? Was there a fight? No, the voice was aimed at him. A tall, young officer was marching toward him, one hand clutching his holster, the other twitching with barely concealed adrenaline. Lawrence's instincts sharpened instantly. He raised his hand slowly, palms open, fingers spread, his voice steady from decades of courtroom decorum. "Officer, I'm Judge Lawrence Carrington. I am not armed. I am reaching for my ID. Hands up. Don't move." Mallory barked again, louder this time, turning heads. A man near the frozen yogurt shop pulled out his phone. Two teenagers nearby exchanged uneasy glances. Lawrence obeyed. His heart thundered in his chest, but his face remained neutral. He knew better than to make sudden moves. He had lectured countless defendants about compliance, about de-escalation. Now those lessons were all he had. He didn't even have time to explain before Mallory lunged. Without warning, Lawrence was slammed against the hood of the cruiser, the steel cuffs biting into his wrists. Heat radiated off the metal, searing his palms. He could hear the buzz of cell phones going live, the sharp intake of breath from onlookers. "I told you," Lawrence said, voice low but firm. "I am Judge Carrington. My ID is in my wallet. Check it." Mallory didn't respond. Didn't check. Didn't care. Instead, he yanked Lawrence's arms higher, eliciting a grunt of pain. The judge ground his teeth together, refusing to give Mallory the satisfaction of hearing him cry out. A woman nearby shouted, "What are you doing?" "He didn't do anything." "Back away, ma'am." Mallory snapped. Another voice called out, an older man in a mechanic's uniform. "That's Judge Carrington." "You got the wrong guy, son." Still, Mallory ignored them all. His tunnel vision locked him into a narrative where Lawrence was the enemy. Meanwhile, inside Madison's brew, the barista Ellie Franco pressed her palms against the glass, horrified. She recognized him immediately. Judge Carrington, who always tipped generously, who always asked how her classes were going. Outside, the crowd thickened. The buzzing of phones grew louder. The tension was electric. Finally, another cruiser peeled into the lot, tires screeching. Sergeant Alicia Monroe, a veteran with a reputation for level-headedness, jumped out. "Trent, what's going on here?" she demanded. "Suspect fitting the description, Sergeant." Mallory barked back. Dark jacket, dark pants, mid-50s, black male. Monroe scanned the scene. Her eyes fell on the wallet lying just inches away on the asphalt. She picked it up, opened it, and froze. The badge inside gleamed under the setting sun. Stanfield County Superior Court, Judge Lawrence Carrington. "Jesus Christ, Trent," she muttered. "Get the cuffs off him." "Now." Mallory hesitated. "Now, Officer Mallory." His hands fumbled with the keys. The cuffs clattered to the ground. Lawrence straightened slowly, rotating his sore wrists. He didn't lash out. He didn't raise his voice. He just looked at Mallory. And in that look, he conveyed more disappointment, more condemnation than any shouted curse ever could. Monroe stepped close, her voice low. "Judge Carrington, I am so deeply sorry. I don't have words." "You need to manage your officers better," Lawrence said, his tone razor-sharp but quiet. "Yes, sir," she said, shame written all over her face. But it was too late. The damage was done. The videos were already online. The city wouldn't be able to ignore this. Within hours, the footage was on every major platform. National news outlets picked it up by morning. The headlines were brutal. "Respected judge wrongfully detained at gunpoint." "Modesto erupts." City Hall scrambled to contain the fallout. Emergency meetings were called. Internal Affairs launched an investigation not just into Mallory's actions, but into broader systemic failures. Lawrence Carrington didn't seek out the cameras. He didn't chase interviews. He didn't try to become a symbol. But the city made him one anyway. A packed town hall meeting. Hundreds of residents demanded accountability. Speakers lined up for hours. Teachers, veterans, young fathers, nurses, high school students. All of them told the same story over and over in different words. "We're tired. We're scared. We're angry." When asked to speak, Lawrence stood slowly, adjusting his tie. He stepped to the podium, the crowd falling silent. "I didn't come here tonight to talk about myself," he began. "I came because this is not just about one man in one parking lot. This is about trust, about dignity, about the simple expectation that we can exist without fear in our own communities." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle over the room. "This is not the end," he said. "This is the beginning." And it was. The city council voted unanimously to establish a civilian oversight board. New de-escalation training protocols were introduced. Officer Mallory was fired following a formal inquiry. State agencies launched broader reviews into police accountability across California. But for Lawrence Carrington, real victory wasn't in headlines or policy papers. It was in the quiet moments afterward. The teenage girl who emailed him to say she wanted to become a civil rights attorney. The officer who stopped him in a parking lot weeks later, not to accuse, but to apologize. The barista Ellie Franco, who left a note taped to his usual coffee cup. "Thank you for standing up when you didn't have to. We see you." Real change, Lawrence knew, was not a single sweeping event. It was 1,000 small, stubborn acts of courage, repeated again and again. Standing still, speaking truth, refusing to be silent. And though the road ahead was long, he would walk it. Not just for himself, but for every voice that had been shouted down, for every spirit that had been broken, for every hand that had been forced into the air without cause. Because sometimes, the strongest thing a person can do is simply refuse to fall. And that refusal can shake the world.